Hey Giants fans, welcome back to Giants Latest. Today we're going to talk through some more camp battles, but first I want to talk about Malik Nabers. Because first it was Tyrone Tracy, now it's Malik Nabers, both being selected to specific NFL and ESPN analyst teams, and on top of that, projecting to have a really good year. So NFL.com's Nick Shook published his 2025 all under 25 team earlier this week. So I'll read you through the team and then we're going to talk through what he said about Nabers. Quarterback Jaden Daniels, running backs Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, wide receivers Puka Nacua, Brian Thomas Jr., and Nabers is the flex. Tight end Brock Bowers, and then tackles Penei Sewell, Charles Cross, guards Tyler Smith and Peter Skoronski, and then center Zach Frazier. He was also on the same team as Tyrone Tracy. So this is what he said about Malik Nabers. Giants fans are very happy to have Nabers in the Big Apple, especially after he almost single-handedly kept their offense afloat on many Sundays in 2024. In the final season of the Daniel Jones era, the quarterback treated Nabers like a life raft amid a torrential storm at sea, force-feeding his younger teammate and allowing Nabers to work his magic. Consider week 2 when Jones targeted Nabers 18 times to the tune of 10 catches for 127 yards and 1 touchdown in a close loss to Washington. That is, of course, the kicker mix-up game and the also very unfortunate throw to Malik Nabers on 4th and 4 that if he caught it and converted it, the Giants could have won. But it's the Giants, so they didn't. Surprise, surprise. It became clear that like Brian Thomas Jr. in Jacksonville, Nabers was his team's best option in the passing attack, eminently capable of making defenders look silly. He did that to the Browns with 2 touchdowns in week 3, torched the Colts for 7 catches, 171s, and 2 touchdowns in the late season win. These Giants have desperately needed a receiver with these capabilities since the heyday of OBJ, finally found it in Nabers, who was the first Giants player to reach 1,000 receiving yards in a season since OBJ in 2018. I expect Nabers to land on this list for the next 2 or 3 years because he is only 21 years old. So I know we all talk about Nabers. We're all excited about him. I think that it is very likely that he gets 1,500 yards. You know, I talked about this a lot recently. The Giants have had atrocious quarterback play. I feel the need to remind people that for the last few years, outside of Daniel Jones, we've also had guys like Mike Glennon, Jake Fromm, Tommy DeVito, Tim Boyle, Drew Lock, Tyrod Taylor. The list goes on. And the fact that Nabers, with 4 different not good quarterbacks, got over 1,200 receiving yards and he played 15 games being out too with injury. Imagine what he can do this year with Russell Wilson, who throws a very catchable ball, who is very accurate, who throws a fantastic moon ball, who the Giants have talked extensively about the fact that they need more explosive plays. Russell Wilson and Malik Nabers are going to get them there this year, and I'm so excited about it. Excuse me. So I'm excited to see Nabers in year 2. I think he's another guy that we're probably not going to see a lot of during camp, which I don't have a problem with because, you know, he's still kind of nursing this turf toe. And honestly, he's one of the players on this team that I'm the least worried about. Yes, I would like him and Russell Wilson to form a good connection, but I ultimately feel like, again, if Nabers had success with those 4 quarterbacks, what kind of connection did he have with Tim Boyle and Tommy DeVito? Spoiler alert, probably not a great one. They barely got any practice times together. And he still was able to have 171 yards in 1 game with Drew Lock as his quarterback. So I just think Russell Wilson is going to take it to the next level with Malik Nabers, and I'm really excited about them. So if anyone has the opportunity to draft Malik Nabers in fantasy, do that. Obviously. If I have the opportunity and I'm not picking 10th again, I most certainly will do the same. So let's move along to more camp battles because camp starts next week. And, you know, I really feel like there are not a ton of starting roles that are open for competition. But I do like that I think this coaching staff has year after year continually said that competition is important and the Giants finally have some depth in certain roster spots that I think that is really going to help them and going to make camp more fun when we talk about these specific types of battles and things. So let's talk about the tight end position because we know that the 2 starters are going to be Chris Manhertz and Theo Johnson. And I think some people could probably make the argument that, you know, why are you assuming Chris Manhertz is going to make the roster just because they re-signed him? You know, why him over Bellinger versus Fedoni? Okay, so let's talk through it. So there's no question whether or not Theo Johnson is making this roster. I think we can all agree with that, right? He had a good rookie year last year. He was just coming on before he got injured. This front office staff, they drafted him. They used him right away. They love him. I don't think there's any questions there. Chris Manhertz is a guy that they brought in as a free agent last year, and they also love him. He is one of the veterans in the room. He has a lot of experience. He's mostly stayed healthy so far with the Giants. He didn't miss a ton of games last year. And, I think they like having that veteran presence in the locker room. And you can say that Daniel Bellinger going into his fourth year is a bit of a veteran at this point, but I just think it's not the same as someone like Manhertz. Manhertz has really good blocking abilities, what the Giants have loved and utilized over the last year or so since he's been with the Giants. And he has proven to be a decent pass catcher as well. So, I think he had a couple touchdowns last year, one or more of which were called back due to penalties, because why wouldn't they have been? Just, it's the Giants we're talking about after all. So there's not really a surprise there, but I think that it's most likely that those two make the roster. Now, when we talk about Bellinger versus Fidone, we can make that same argument, right? Is that this front office staff drafted both of those players. Bellinger had a really great rookie year. Then his second year, he dealt with some freakish injuries like the eye thing, and then wasn't really the same. And then last year, it's really tough to grade last year because everyone was horrible, like outside of Nabers. Like literally everyone on this team was awful. And Dexter Lawrence. Like those are the only two who I can confidently say were not horrible. And Andrew Thomas was fine before he got injured, but he didn't play the whole season, right? So when you look at all of the other players, everyone had a bad year. So Bellinger is not the exception to that, right? It's not just, oh, well, everyone else played well and he sucks, so he shouldn't get the roster spot. I think ultimately they just feel like Fidone is the guy that's part of their future. Bellinger's in his last year. I think they really believe in Theo Johnson, that he's going to be the future of this team, whether it's blocking or receiving. He's capable of doing both. He's a big body target, and when you look at Bellinger and Fidone, they're both also 6'6" big guys. Like their build and their size are very, very similar. They obviously liked Fidone enough to bring him in. I've heard a lot of beat writers talk about the fact that they've been really impressed with what they saw in person from Fidone throughout the spring. He was in that Matt Rule offense, so he's ahead and he's very smart and he's learning the playbook maybe a little bit faster than some of the other rookies because of his college experience at Nebraska. And, I just think that all of those things lead me to believe that he could get the roster spot over Bellinger. Now, is there a possibility the Giants keep 4 tight ends? 100%. But when I went through my roster prediction and I looked at what the Giants did over the last couple of years, they kept 3 tight ends. So I do kind of feel like it's a 50-50 split. It could go either way, and it could be Fidone that ends up on the practice squad. But I'm just hearing a lot of good things about Fidone, and a lot of people who've seen him in person at Giants practices that I trust have said, don't count him out. Don't assume that just because he was a 7th round or 6th round pick that he's going to be a practice squad guy. Don't assume that. So I'm not assuming. I'm giving Fidone some credit here and think that he has the possibility to beat out Bellinger. I think that it probably could go either way, but those are 2 guys that I'm really going to focus on during camp because I'm really excited to see who gets more targets. Like, one of the reasons why Fidone slipped was because he had 2 ACL injuries, both on the same leg, unfortunately. But he said that he hasn't lost his athleticism. Travis Kelce, when they were at tight end U, gave him an amazing compliment, said he's still very athletic, he's got good speed. He was very complimentary of Fidone, and takes one to know one, right? So I think that also is very interesting and something that we should keep our eyes on. So excited to watch the tight end competition at camp. Lastly, let's talk about cornerback 2. Paulson Adebo has cornerback 1 locked up. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Is Flott really going to be in the competition? I would say yes. Do I think he's realistically going to beat out Tay Banks? No, but I think that they have to foster that competition, and you cannot let someone like Tay Banks assume that he is getting that position because of what he's done in the past. He had a good year. He had a really bad year. He's got attitude issues, and I hope that that's fixed this year. I really do. It sounds like, he's more engaged, whatever. But I think ultimately, until we see it on the field and we see how he plays and his body language, if he misses a play or he, does something stupid or gets a penalty or whatever, how does he come off the field? How does he interact with Dable and with Shane Shane Bowen, like what does that really look like? Because all of those things are ultimately going to be important as to whether or not he gets a starting role. They are not Dave Gettleman, and they're not just going to say, well, we don't care what he does off the field, and we don't really care if he's an a-hole. He's the best player, so he's going to be the starter. They're not going to do that. So I am very curious to watch it. You know, Cordell Flott has looked pretty good this spring. He is someone who, you know, kind of reminds me of Dane Belton, where they have really great summers. And then when they get playing time in the NFL, it's just not the same. So I hope that at this point in their careers, they can take it to that next level. If they get the NFL playing time, they prove that they deserve it. And I think, you know, Dane Belton more so than Flott is probably going to be able to do that. But, you know, I'm not giving up on Tay Banks. I think that he's going to be in a better position this year because he is cornerback 2, not cornerback 1. That's where he had success year 1. He wasn't covering the Justin Jeffersons and Jamar Chases. He was covering the wide receiver 2s, and that's when he gave up 4 touchdowns. That's when he had his better year with the Giants. Now, it was a different system, and Wink loved him, but I feel like camp is going to be a good test to prove whether or not he can do well in Shane Bowen's system because it is so different. But I also think that because Shane Bowen has so much talent up front and this D-line is hopefully really going to get there and get those sacks and make those plays, it's going to put less pressure on the secondary, especially the corners, especially someone like Tay Banks, that maybe we just won't have to rely on him to do as much as he was expected to do last year. And I think that was part of the issue why he just didn't live up to the hype. So look, ultimately, time will tell. Preseason is, of course, going to have a lot to do with this as well, but I think this is really the first starting point during training camp to see what these guys look like in the summer, how they do going against Darius Slayton. Do they go against Malik Nabers every once in a while if he gets some playing time this summer? That stuff is all going to be interesting, and I'm really excited to watch. So if you guys are going to be at camp, let me know in the comments, and I will be excited to see you all next week. If you're not going, stay tuned and subscribe because there will be daily recaps.